Hello everyone, welcome back to Node Astrology. And today I bring you another powerful manifester. This is Kelly. Kelly was born on the 29th of January, 1985, 1:46 p.m. in Ogden, Utah. That makes her a Gemini rising. Another one of these powerful as I speak, so shall it be individuals in a much more, I guess, mystical, divine kind of way, and we can get into that as we roll through, right? As a Gemini rising, she is ruled by Mercury, and that's in Capricorn, and we will definitely get to that. But, so when she engages with her inner self, right? At 21 degrees, there's part of her that's a little suppressed, right? All of us have these pieces, but this is her inner true self, right? It's also, in that 12th house in Taurus, there's stuff going on, and I'll get to that. So, but she also projects out as somebody who cares about people, right? That's that Cancer. Or she will go out, through communication, or somebody will bring her communication, or somebody will mirror her, right? That's another function of Gemini. Or they will bring her, they will mirror her, and then they will bring in that care, and that will start something new. And the second house is about values, right? This is skills also. This is how we think about material possessions and our physical security and what makes us feel safe, right? So this is about emotions. And because it's Taurus, it's or the foundation is in Taurus, it is grounded, right? It takes time. So the opposite of, that second house, or is the 8th house, not to be confused with trust, right? Which is what 8th house, Scorpio, that kind of stuff is. But anything second house or Taurus is about loyalty, right? She also respects emotional loyalty. And there's a little bit of creation there, a little bit of Leo right there at the end, some, people's inner strength. But she is, she's good at emotions. She values them. She's good at caring for people, and possibly also good at being open to being cared for, right? And as an Aquarius sun, that may be an interesting thing, and I'll need to get into this a little bit further, possibly to see how that works, right? But actually, let's go to that. Second house is ruled by the moon, and that moon is in the 12th house in Taurus. So moon is ruled by Venus, Venus in the 10th house, and then ruled by Aquarius. Let's keep going forward because that gets real complex real fast. I can go back to that, and that may make more sense. So moving on to the third house, that begins in Leo and ruled by that Aquarius sun in the 9th house. There's experience. There is somebody who is of the collective, somebody who always is trying to go with the flow, and that's what she's thinking about, right? Thinking about creation, thinking about herself, thinking about how she might fit into that stuff, and how she's going to guide her mind to communicate in a way that will create a legacy for her, right? Because Aquarius is also in that foundation of Saturn, but also that influence of Uranus as well. As a feminine energy, she might be thinking about her children, right? I'm not sure whether whether Kelly does have children or not, but she's thinking about creation. She's thinking about people's inner spark. She's thinking about her inner spark, how to keep that rolling, right? Because the third house of the mind is the foundation of that 9th house, which is expansion, right? And that's where she is. She is expanding herself through, keeping herself and keeping her creations on her mind. Okay, so let's move on to the 4th house. Also begins in Leo, but there's a lot of Virgo in here too. And it's not intercepted. But so we're talking about the creations, right? This is where the 4th house, where she's grounded. This is her emotional center, right? Where she slows down and resets and gets her power back, right? This is one of the This is the centering space, whether it's a physical space or a person or people or whatever it is. But this is where she has to be solid, right? And it's about creation. It's about herself. It is about service, right? Virgo is about service or getting it done, right? Transforming anything through service, whether that's through communication, whether that's through physical labor with your hands. The things in her house have to be, a lot of them have to be, they have to work. They have to be of service to her in some way, right? And if they're not being of service, I suspect they might need to go out the door, you know? And since we're talking about going outdoors, let's go out the door into entertainment here, right? Let's go out in here into the realm of life. It begins in Virgo, and it intercepts that house of, or that sign of Libra, right? Nothing starts or ends in Libra, and on the other side, Aries is the same thing. So intercepted sign. So that means her fifth house has two rulers, Mercury and Venus both, right? So let's start with that Mercury. The Mercury's in Capricorn. It starts, so ruled by Saturn, and her Venus is in Pisces, but the house, that 10th house, is ruled by Uranus and Saturn because it starts in Aquarius. So we've got a double Saturn rulership here, right? Co-ruled, in that Aquarius, and singular ruled for that Mercury. I expect before she turned 30, there was a bit of a difficulty. She probably used relationships to entertain herself. So there might have been a playfulness that she had about relationships or justice or balance that she actually used to, like I said, entertain herself, not in a malicious way, but in a mental, verbal, exercise. Gemini is of the mind. They move around real fast. And even though, or probably especially because she's an Aquarius, their minds move so quick, right? So in whole sign, right, which means you put the sun in the first house. So Aquarius is the first, Pisces would be the second, and then Aries would be the third, right? So that's a very powerful, direct mind. Although Aquarius moves in strange directions, right? You guys have seen how their minds work. They think about the wildest stuff. But, going back to this fifth house, so it's about the communication and it's about how they feel. So they're trying to gauge how they feel through that communication, and that itself is possibly entertaining, right? Or, there might be, because we got the Mercury in Cap and we got the Venus in Pisces, about, so strange things of loss. Kelly might be somebody that enjoys, true crime dramas or any of those, unsolved mystery things where people disappear through strange circumstances, things like that. Because there's, loss and magic, but again, that Mercury and Capricorn kind of rules the whole thing, co-rules it, but it's of foundation. Although 8th house can be about death and rebirth. So there's the, transformational aspect of that. So actually there's quite a bit of depth here. So there's a lot of things to draw from just in this fifth house reading. Okay, and the other interesting aspect here is that Pluto in Scorpio, right? At 4 degrees, that Pluto is moved into Scorpio. He's getting a little bit of experience. And Pluto's a slow mover, right? It's about power and control and depth and death and, things of that nature. So again, her entertainment experiences can be like that. She might seek those kinds of experiences out, right? I'm going to guess horror movies, right? Probably entertain her in some kind of way. But anytime I see Pluto definitely in Scorpio, it is about, you have to really go into trust situations. You have to really go into spaces of not being able to visibly see what's going on, but, psychic ability or, things of that nature. and there's a trine there with her son that is it's a healthy handshake. It's like a friendly handshake. So she has that transforming, expanding her, right, when she goes into those spaces. And because her Mercury and her Venus, as I said before, are co-ruled by Saturn, there's a Saturn return element, and I'll get into that when I move into the sixth house, which is now. Okay. Vertex. I don't always talk about this in my readings, but it's a calculated point. It's not an asteroid or a planet or anything like that. It's basically like a point of fate, so to speak, right? When there is any kind of conjunction there, or anytime you meet somebody and they've got sun, moon, rising, Mercury, Venus, whatever, any kind of placement there, or especially if there is like a full moon, new moon, even once a month when the moon passes over that point in Scorpio, right, she's going to get a hit on on Pluto, and then a day or so later she's going to hit vertex. Bam, it's going to be another another trigger point to transform her life, right? Because that's what Scorpio is about. It's about transformation. Into the sixth house, this is about daily, right? She's got to trust people. She's got to trust things. She's got to trust herself. She has to, and it's also about finances, right? And Scorpio is, things you can't see, right? Financing something is something you can't see. It has value, and it has value, but it's got value that's unseen, right? As usual, I'm going to skip over the south node until I get to the north later on in the chart, and then I'll come back and kind of pull everything all back in. And it definitely works really well with a north node in the 12th, and that moon and that Chiron there. So going into Saturn. Saturn in Scorpio is about taking time to trust things, right? It is about building a legacy of trust. It is about building a legacy of knowing things that can't be seen. It is a legacy of, this could be like family psychic abilities. Now it's kind of an interesting process here, but with Mars and Venus in Pisces, even though it's ruled by Aquarius, right? So we're still back to Saturn, and we're pointing back to Uranus in Sagittarius, right? I always see, especially Uranus and Sagittarius, as I don't know if I know a lot of people have heard about Akashic records, right? Those are supposedly the information that the universe stores on everything all the time, right? I saw a video where a scientist was talking about information, right? Light has no weight, right? It just it moves, and you can't weigh it because it's just information, right? But the more information something gets, right, the heavier it gets and the slower it gets. So light turns into other things, but that's another topic altogether, right? When you are sitting on a scale and your mind is blank, right? If you have an idea, you do not get any heavier, right? There's nothing added, right? There's no weight added. So information carries no weight. Therefore, an idea is energy. And since energy can never be created or destroyed, only transformed, that means that the idea that you just got always existed. You just tapped into it, right? Uranus is the great transmitter, right? He is the emissary of Aquarius. That's his nation. He is the people, right? And in Sagittarius, he is the people of the past, of the been there, done that, of the expansion, right? Of the trade. Okay. So we're looking at someone that can tap into things as long as they transform, right? A legacy of transforming, a legacy of of going into those spaces. Now I know I'm kind of pushing Saturn forward into that Sagittarius and into that Uranus, but it is that, and those abilities they were probably there and moving into those trusting spaces, but it probably came much more in line with her Saturn return. And okay, so here's Kelly's Saturn return chart, and I checked the retrogrades that year, and it only retrograded starting in Sagittarius, and it did retrograde back into Scorpio. So it didn't like come up to 27 degrees and pass it and then back up over it and then go back forward over it. However, what it did do was by August, it had gone forward in Sag, cleared, and then backed up all the way back within 1 degree, and then parked there as it stationed direct for a week or longer. And because Saturn and Jupiter are so big, most astrologers will give like a 3 degree, what they refer to as an orb, for almost any other planet other than Saturn and Jupiter, and they give them 5 degrees because they're big, right? So Saturn's essentially got a 5 degree orb here, and he's within 1 degree of her Saturn. So you guys can see the triangle there in the middle, and the opposition that is right dead on the middle of that is Mars in Cancer in her second house. So it's upgrading her value system, right? In opposition to her Jupiter, her expansion through trust and, all of the Scorpionic kinds of things that would come through Capricorn, and her communication, right? And you can also see that there is a sextile from Mercury to, and also her Jupiter, because they're so close together, 28 and 26 degrees, down to that Saturn natally, right? And now, of course, we got Saturn retrograde or stationed direct. See, he's about to move forward, but he's only 1 degree off, right? He's, all the way back to 2816. So it's less than, barely more than a degree. It doesn't even matter if that, those number of minutes there, 16 minutes, it doesn't matter. He's so big. So it wasn't just upgrading her daily life and her trust and her, her ability to rebirth herself, but with a lot more forces there at work, right? That trine from Mars over there in Cancer up to her Mars and her Venus, and then from her Mars and Venus right back down to Saturn, right? So powerful transformation. So that's much more than just a single pass or a bunch of leading up passes, or because sometimes there would be conjunctions beforehand, Sun, Mercury, or, they call that a cazimi when the Sun and Mercury come together, or, Moon, Mercury, or anything like that, or, a Venus opposition somewhere else, and it'll lean up to it, and, in the other house, or in Capricorn, to give like a feel for it, right? But that's probably much more intense than 3 passes, because it went past, it really wasn't going that fast, stopped, backed up, and then parked like 1 degree off. So by the time that came through in August, she knew exactly what the game was, right? And then, as it moved off, everything, she took that and moved forward in her life, right? So that's I think that was interesting to share with you guys, and also with you, Kelly. And I'm sure you remember exactly what was going on during those days, or probably if you don't right now, or before, you probably are remembering some things that happened then with your money and your trust and your rebirthing and all those things. Yep. Okay, so let's move on to Uranus. That's quite a bit of Saturn there. So Uranus is always our ability to break out of the box, right? He's the rebel. He is the masculine rebel in the chart, all right? Because Mars is a warrior. He just moves forward. But Uranus is the rebel. He he has to have something to rebel against, right? So give him something substantial to rebel against, and he will do it in a wonderful way. He will break out of the belief systems that you have set up that don't make any sense, okay? Because he is intelligence, right? There's a divine intelligence there, but it's more, again, he's the signature planet for Aquarius, right? There's not a lot of emotion there, but there's lots of information. And in the 6th house, this is about work, right? This is about service. So she has new ideas about how to serve or how to work or how to improve a job, right? And ultimately that can translate into a career, right? If you have the eye for that, then you have the ability to turn your skill into a career. And with her 10th house starting in Aquarius, right, that makes sense. So let's move on to the 7th house. 7th house begins in Sagittarius, and 7th house is all about relationships, right? Not just friends, not just enemies, not just romantic partners, not just children, not just parents, everything, right? All relationships. And she wants that to be about experience, but that experience has to be vetted, right? It goes back to that Jupiter that's in Capricorn in the 8th house, right? So there's a trust level here, and this is a prove to me that you can do this, right? It's also a solidifying of her understanding that when she is in a relationship with somebody, they need to have some sort of experience, or she's going to have a new experience with them that's going to bring on those elements of trust and of finance and of, possibly jealousy or, any of those scorpionic kinds of things, right? With Neptune very much out of place here in Capricorn in the 7th house, the details about how to structure these relationships are foggy. Neptune does not give details, he gives direction, right? He will tell you, let's go over in this direction, let's try these things, right? You don't know what the outcome is going to be, but they are always divinely inspired, right? And with her, it's partially about rebirth, right? That sextile down to her Pluto in Scorpio in the 5th house. So it's about that life, right? That entertaining, right? So it maybe something she reads, or maybe some sort of adventure that she went on will, allow her to meet a friend, or maybe even meet an enemy for that matter, right? Both of those things are possible. And with the square up to her Mars and her Venus, that's also given that, it could be either a masculine or a feminine, or a blending of the masculine and feminine. It might be kind of vague to her. There might be, people who are a good balance of masculine and feminine, or possibly even somebody who is gender fluid for that matter. With a Pluto and Scorpio generation, I wouldn't be surprised about that. Not necessarily somebody who is a partner, but somebody who could be a friend, or even somebody who is an enemy who looks like they have their masculine or their feminine under control, and because she has a hard time seeing whether they do or not, or whether they're being of service, it creates that fog that Neptune does so well, but it's still divine guidance. On the other hand, Neptune is also substances or substance abuse, or just usage in general, right? I mean, people use substances for all kinds of things. So this could be, she doesn't want to be friends with somebody unless, she's had a drink with them, right? That could be the foundation, right? Or whether they do whatever, daily substance she likes, whether it's, coffee or anything else, nicotine, doesn't matter, right? That could be the end for somebody, through that, entertaining, through that 5th house, through that life portion. So that could be a way in for that too. Sometimes the signs or the planets are just the signs of the planets, and sometimes they're much bigger than that, right? Neptune could also be calling to the ocean, right? So she might be friends with people who are mariners, right? Because travel is ruled by Sagittarius, and Neptune is the lord of the ocean. So this could mean so many different things, but as we go through our lives and make decisions, it tends to focus these things down. But just because we focus them down doesn't mean they can't be bigger, right? It's also looking to me like, because there's aspects from that Neptune in the 7th to that Mars and that Venus in the 10th, that the people that she's, in her career with are friends, right? But those are possibly also enemies again, right? But that could also be a partner because of how that Neptune ties in with the Pluto. It could be transformational, right? Could meet somebody at work, they become a friend, and then they become somebody that she goes out and does recreational things with that really transforms how she looks at trust and how she looks at relationships, how she looks at her career, her public life. So all of these things can all feed into each other in very miraculous and very cool ways. Okay, 8th house, starting in Capricorn, ruled by that Saturn in Scorpio. So now we have a sign, a planet in a sign of Scorpio ruling the 8th house. Very intense, very structured, very powerful here, right? There is really intense, transformational, possibly stuff about death, because the Romans and the Greeks, who developed a lot of the astrological things that we use now, did see Saturn as the Lord of Death, right? As opposed to Pluto or, Mars. Mars is the soldier, he delivers it, right? But he is, under Pluto. But they looked at Saturn as the destruction, right? So through the Lord of Karma operating here in the house of destruction and rebirth, very intense. And obviously calling back to that Saturn return and what was going on there. And being as an Aquarius, being able to mentally roll through this, definitely, you can see how that can alter who her identity of herself is, through that connection to Pluto and that Sun in her 9th house, creating her mind, right? That mind in Leo, and even her home, right? So that Mercury in Capricorn in the 8th house is very targeted. It's very specific. It takes time to build that, right? It's Saturn. And it wants to climb. It wants long-term improvement. It's not like Virgo, where it has to be of service, right? Capricorn will give you back whatever you put in. So whatever type of language that she wanted, whatever type of communication or whatever type of trust that she built with that language or that expansion or those experiences, right? Jupiter being the planet of expansion, right? He makes a lot of things, or he expands them. So there's a lot of it. So, we've got kind of push and pull going on here. We've got Jupiter in the 8th in Capricorn expanding, but under the rule of Saturn and Scorpio, who wants to focus. He wants to always do it, or there's a resistance to it, right? There could also be a resistance to that, and then possibly running away from either allowing the masculine or the feminine energies to be expressed in a public way. So again, I don't know, Kelly. So it's all about our decisions. So all of these things, these elements in our charts, they can go in so many directions, guys. So knowing who we are through the study of this stuff, or whether somebody's going to do a reading for you, as I'm doing for her, can really expand our minds and show us what's possible, and bust those beliefs open, right? And speaking of beliefs, here we are in the 9th house, right? She believes herself to be a member of the collective, right? To be an Aquarius, to be a wise mind, right? Again, co-ruled by Saturn, but now we're in Uranus territory too, right? But that Uranus is in Sagittarius. So he was already getting experience daily about rebirthing, right? Knows that, he's got to move forward. He can move forward. The space in between the Aquarius jumps, right? Those two lines, that's back to the bursting through the water, right? When you're coming up through the water, you close your eyes, now you're in the air, or when you go back underneath. And, Aquarius is a light switch. It's on or it's off. You're either in the vibe or you're not in the vibe. And you've seen them get cold, right? And they can. But that's so that they can jump to the next level. That's so they can evolve, right? Capricorn stays maintaining. He's going to build and build and build and build. And Uranus and Aquarius, they want to leap forward. They want to jump, right? They want to make the jump forward. They're like, okay, I see what you're doing there. Let's leap forward. Let's jump. Let's innovate. Let's break out here. It may not work, but let's break out. Let's try something new. Let's try something weird. And as long as her experience and long as her transformation is in line, that's going to happen all day, right? It's going to happen anytime she puts her mind to it, right? That third house back to Leo, she's thinking about herself, thinking about her creation, thinking about how, keeping her fires lit, right? Super sharp mind on any Aquarius, very powerful, right? So moving on to the 10th house, which is our public life, our career, and our fame, how we're known, right? Whether it's people that actually know us, people that can see us out in public, right? This is our public face, right? This is not the face that we only show to certain people. This is our public face. So people know that she's an Aquarius. People also know that she brings people together, right? Which is what Gemini really does. Like, that's what Geminis do. They bring things together. And if they can't bring things together, they let things go real fast, right? They change their minds. They see something and they go for it, bang, right? And the letting go for her, is much more about bringing those masculine and feminine energies together, right? That drive to go after things, and also that, do I feel good about this, right? Do I feel good about who I'm bringing together, or do I feel good about how I let go of various things in public life? I expect, a number of different careers, right? Not just different jobs, right? Because that's, Uranus in the 6th, especially that 6th house starting in Scorpio, there's going to be startovers, right? Things are going to be going along. There's going to be, probably a relationship conflict. Bang, done, over. Let's go, move on, right? And with a 10th house, that much Pisces in it, there's letting go. But it could also be of divine service too, right? With that influence to Neptune, where he talked about, and Saturn, whatever, trust element that she's been working on in her daily life, whatever, releasing, whatever letting go, because that's what Scorpio does. It cuts itself off, right? It's like, you're done. I don't need you anymore. You're not valuable. Done, right? Taurus holds on. Scorpio lets go, right? So there's an element of that there also too, right? Okay. So the other complicated portion of this is 11th house. So this is friends. This is collective humanity. This is our ideals about how the world should be. This is also if we're any kind of business owner, or if we are a contractor of any kind, these are our clients, right? These are our fans, all right? If you have any kind of, skill that can pull fans in. Beginning in Pisces, we are looking at Jupiter and also Neptune. And both of them are in Capricorn, right? But they are ruled by other signs. Her Neptune in Capricorn is actually ruled by Jupiter, and her Jupiter is ruled by Saturn in Scorpio. And on top of that, we have Aries intercepted in the 11th house, right? But that actually is slightly easier because that's about her Mars, right? And that Mars is in Pisces, right? So it's ruled by that Neptune and that Jupiter again. So we're really kind of going back and forth with Neptune and Jupiter and Saturn in Scorpio. So we're still talking about rebirthing elements, right? And her friends are probably feel like they're childhood friends, right? That's Aries. It's Aries is the eternal child or the emperor. That's that work hard, play hard. That's also, are we playing or are we fighting kind of stuff. And there might be, a playing, fighting kind of thing with a youthfulness also, with her friends or with her, collective humanity, the general, people out in the world, are also her clients, so it can be a little complex. And we're also looking at Lilith here too, right? That's that feminine radical element in all of our charts that wants to do things its own way, right? Just because somebody else wants to do it that way, that's not how I'm going to do it, right? So there is a lot of moving pieces here, but it really comes back to this continual rebirthing and going back to Saturn and making sure that she does, as opposed to not changing, right? Okay, let's move on to the last house, 12th house here, beginning in Taurus, and that is ruled by Venus, and we've already talked about the Mars and Venus stuff, and going back to Aquarius, right? And the moon here in Taurus, moon likes being in Taurus, right? It's safe, it's secure, it's valuable. Taurus, is trustworthy, right? Taurus is also about loyalty, right? That's, Scorpio is about trust. Taurus is about loyalty, right? And in the 12th house here, this is the releasing, this is the letting go, this is our service to humanity, this is the ways that we undo ourselves, right? So she might actually seek too much, pleasure for herself in certain ways, or get, kind of moody about it, or her moods might actually be rather suppressed. Now with an Aquarius, they can get fired up if things are, out of balance, or if things aren't going to flow. They will get fired up about stuff. You will have karma come down on you. And Uranus will use his intelligence against you if you aren't going with the flow on it, right? And all of that under this banner of Venus in Pisces, which is about service, which is about, self-sacrifice, ruling the house of self-sacrifice, right? How we turn on ourselves. So maybe not doing things for herself, maybe not making sure that things are nice around her, but that North Node there, that's how she's to evolve, right? And paying attention to her daily rebirthing process, right? Going back to that South Node, which is her foundation, focusing on that, focusing on her daily life is going to open that up, right? As a, North Node in the 12th person myself, mine is Sagittarius. And I have to focus on, that my South Node in Gemini. I have to focus on me. When I communicate with myself, when I ground in me, when I do my daily meditations, when I get me set, that's how my service opens up, right? That's, my self-sacrifice. That's what pays back, right? That's how I get it back. And when she grounds in those psychic spaces, in those trusting spaces, in that legacy, space there with Saturn, it makes her feel good about those sacrifices, and it probably, translates right into drive of pushing her into doing it more with that Mars and that Venus together, right? With Chiron in the 12th in Gemini, she probably doesn't even feel like there's any kind of wound, right? There's enough sacrifice going on here with, all of that Pisces in the 10th, and then ruling her 11th house, right? With that intercepted Aries there, not knowing necessarily which face to show, right, in the group, which is very understandable for an Aquarius, right? Because they do vibe so well with their friends that they sometimes lose themselves, right? And that could also be the rest of this 12th house, not knowing what her own values are, right? That's also Taurus, is personal values. And, having moods about her personal values. It's probably more about, giving other people things that are valuable, right? Actually valuable, and not things that are, can't be used. Taurus wants things that are useful and, obviously valuable in the hand. So, and then that brings us obviously all the way back around to Gemini. I will be honest, this is one of the more complex charts that I have ever had to go into. We've got, double houses, we've got interceptions, we've got, house rulers going all over the place. So I don't expect to probably get a whole lot of questions. I usually don't. People don't, in a strange way, people rarely come back to me and go, hey Dan, I have a question about what you said about my Mercury, or I don't understand about my Mars. Can you? Sometimes, yes. Most of the time, they don't. I just, client comes, I give the reading, they say thank you. I would love to get some feedback, whether it's from Kelly or it's from anybody else that, listens to this, about what you think about it, or whether you think I got something wrong or not. Because, this is a learning process for me too. I always learn something when I'm going into a chart. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everybody that's, listening in. Thank you, everybody that keeps me motivated to do North Node Astrology. And if anybody else wants to reach me, you can find me on TikTok or Facebook or YouTube. And as always, I love you guys.